I'm Mike Farrington. Welcome back to my shop, aka the boardroom. In this video, I'm not going to quite restore this bandsaw. Let's call it refresh this bandsaw. And just as an added bonus, at the end of the video, I'm going to compare this 20-inch Delta bandsaw with my current 14-inch Laguna bandsaw. And I'll go over a few of the things I like and dislike about both saws. So anytime a project like this follows me home, phase one is always to take it apart and see what's wrong with it. The minute I saw this sticker, I knew I had to buy this bandsaw. It really grinds on me that shop class is being phased out of our public school system. I don't know, maybe I'm just one dude on a mission trying to save shop class one bandsaw at a time. When I was in school, I always got good grades, but I never really felt like I fit in. And that's until I got to high school and started taking auto shop and wood shop, and it just something clicked for me. It really worked for my personality. And I mention all of this only to say that when I saw the sticker, I just felt some sort of obligation to bring the bandsaw home and breathe new life into it. Alright, enough touchy-feely stuff. Let's get to work. So overall, the bandsaw was in pretty good condition, except this one lower bearing was near frozen. So I ended up pulling both bearings off and replacing them while I have it all taken apart. After removing the old bearings and ordering some new ones, the next item on the list was the circulatory system. The original motor was a 1 horsepower, 3-phase, 1725 RPM motor, and I didn't want to have to deal with a phase converter, so I got a 3 horsepower, single-phase motor. And one issue I ran into was the diameter of the output shaft. The original motor had a 3/4 inch shaft, and the new motor had a 1 1/8 inch shaft. But not to worry, I know a guy who knows a guy who has a friend that works at a machine shop, and I was able to get this pulley bored out to 1 1/8. Alright, next up was how to mount the motor to the motor plate, and as you can see, this motor plate has a few different sets of holes drilled in it, and I was very fortunate that the other set of holes lines up perfectly with the new motor. And I spent plenty of time looking at spec sheets, but I did not catch this. The junction box rubs on this portion of the motor plate. So the only solution I could come up with that was both quick and cheap was to put a couple of washers under the motor. The shop apprentice was intrigued by the fact that when you spun the front one, the back one spun and vice versa. I don't know about you guys, but this is what my shop looks like when I'm having way too much fun with a project. The next hurdle to overcome was to temporarily install the motor and see how much of this lower cabinet needs to be cut to allow the motor to fit in fully. And this motor weighs just about 90 pounds, so getting it in and out of here was not the easiest task. It was right about this point I was starting to question my sanity of trying to put a 3 horsepower motor in this bandsaw. But I pressed on and I cut the opening for the motor quite a bit bigger. So I don't do a lot of metal working. Once in a while I find myself cutting something, but I was surprised at how good a sharp metal blade in my jigsaw cut 1/8 inch sheet metal. Alright, so this is the second time I put the motor in, and it looks like it has a pretty good fit at this point. Not perfectly centered, but good enough. Wrong, I'm a total idiot. The motor needs to be able to swing up to install the drive belts. So I had to pull the motor out once again and make another cut and reinstall it, but all worked out in the end. So after the motor was installed and I was sure it would work, I needed to wire everything together. So I'll spare you the next 4.5 minutes of this clip and just fast forward to the good part when I'm all done. Once I had the connections made at the motor, I needed to wire up the switch. So I ordered up a magnetic switch, and boy, it sure looks like all the other magnetic switches on my tools. And compare that to the original switch. I'm not sure if this switch is safer or better, but this old one sure does look and feel better. Early on in my woodworking journey, I realized that I couldn't afford to pay an electrician to come help me every time I bought a new tool. So I bought a few books and I learned the basics of electrical work, and over the years those skills have served me really well. So if electrical work is something you find yourself in need of often, I suggest picking up a couple books or taking a class and learn the basics. It's really not nearly as hard as it seems. This is called a turn lock plug. I put these on all my stationary power tools. With the electrical out of the way, I can turn my attention to some more fun stuff. I picked up a set of urethane tires to replace the old, cracked, original tires. And in my opinion, the tires are one of the 3 critical elements needed to ensure your bandsaw cuts true. And I'll talk about the other 2 critical elements later in the video. And bandsaw tires really aren't a big deal. There's nothing special about them, but they need to be in good condition. No cracks and no grooves. Grooves can cause the blade to wander forward and back. And I don't have a strong opinion between rubber and urethane tires. I've had both on various bandsaws, and both seem to work good if they're in good condition. And what a treat! I have a cameraman on this shot. My wife is moving the camera around, and obviously you can see what she's interested in. Alright, after the tires were installed, it was time to get the headstock put back together. So the bearings that I ordered had finally arrived, and it was time to install those on the main drive shaft. I think bearings should be put on with a press, but I don't have a press. So I use a pipe that is the same diameter as the inner race, and I use a dead blow mallet to drive the bearing home. This assembly is called the headstock, and it's what transfers power from the motor to the lower bandsaw wheel. This is really a critical element in the saw, and I was happy to see how well made this piece is. Really nice heavy cast iron with really good machining. Now that the bearings have been replaced, I reinstalled the drive pulley as well as the lower wheel. And the headstock assembly goes back in. I don't know what these are called, but there's a bunch of these all over the bandsaw on the various parts that need to be adjusted. And they work really good. I've had some other bandsaws where you need to use washers or you just have to scoot the piece around. This allows for really precise adjustment. Here's a mistake I didn't catch during the purchase. These are 1/2-inch square guide blocks. This saw originally came with 5/8-inch square guide blocks. What this means is someone along the way took the guides off of a 14-inch Delta bandsaw and shoehorned them onto this saw. And this was something of an unexpected expense. I was planning on just putting the ceramic guide blocks in these original guides. So I decided to just go ahead and order a set of bearing guides. But after installing the lower guide, I found it was a little too difficult to adjust. So I installed some ceramic blocks in the original lower guide, and I think this is a good compromise. If you look closely, you'll see 2 adjustment knobs on these original guides, and these are really easy to access under the table. And plus, if you've owned bearing guides, you know it's the lower bearings that get packed with dust first, so this will help me avoid that. With the blade guide kerfuffle all sorted out, it was time to reinstall the table so that then I could install a fence. I was also impressed with the table of this bandsaw. I stepped on a scale and I weighed a certain number, and then I picked up the table and weighed myself again, and I was 93 pounds heavier. So this is a really nice cast iron table. I was worried it would be hard to tilt the table due to the weight, but it's actually quite easy. Once the table is on, I moved on to fence installation. Drink those dance moves in. I looked around at all the commercially available bandsaw fences, and none of them seemed as strong and sturdy as I was hoping for. When researching, I kicked around the idea of using a table saw fence, but I couldn't find one used for cheap enough, and the new models all were too expensive. I ended up finding this system here, which is the Delta T2 fence. And it's basically the same design as a table saw fence, it's just smaller and lighter. Plus, it was only a couple more bucks than the commercially available bandsaw fences, but it was much more robust. After mock-up, I cut off the excess. Once I had the fence installed, I decided to take it as well as the table off again to make aligning the wheels easier. And wheel alignment is critical element number 2 in a properly tuned up bandsaw. And if you think about it, there's 6 adjustments between the 2 wheels. The wheel can be moved in and out, it could be tilted, say, from left to right, and it can also be tilted from top to bottom. Every saw will be different, but the idea is that you want these wheels coplanar. So I like to do this procedure with the bandsaw blade on and tensioned, and it's also important to note that you're not going to get this to like NASA level tolerances. At the top wheel here, there's maybe a 32nd, 16th of an inch gap, and I'm calling that good enough. When you're done with your adjustments, set the blade so that it's in the center of the top wheel, and it should be centered on the bottom wheel. If it's centered on the top and not on the bottom, something's wonky and out of adjustment. Go back and double check your work. If you've ever owned a bandsaw and it just doesn't seem to cut right, especially with a new blade, go back and check to make sure that the wheels are coplanar. That could be the culprit. One of the reasons I ended up buying this saw was the adjustability. I wanted a saw that I could tune up to be accurate enough to cut joinery like dovetails and tenons. And here's just one of several examples where I was able to use those adjustment nuts to really get things square with each other. I don't know who welded that dust collection port on, but I was able to get it off by just smacking it with a hammer a couple times. And I was fortunate to be able to find this 4-inch dust port at my local craft-ish wood type of store that covered up the 5-inch opening that was originally cut in. Bouncing around a little bit, I needed a blade guard, and I bought a piece of aluminum, which you can see there, and I just didn't feel like cutting it, so I thought some 1/4-inch Baltic birch would work really well. I also thought it'd be easy to replace if it were ever to be chewed up. And I know attaching a blade guard to the upper door is a little unconventional, but it actually works pretty good, and it is convenient when you're changing blades because you don't have to remove the blade guard. The downside being you have to take 2 actions when you raise and lower the guide post. My main purpose for this guard, though, is to kind of keep my head away from the blade. I have a tendency to crunch over my work when I'm working on something real small. Here's the finished result. Nice smooth operation, and it's not too annoying to have to make the 2 adjustments. And next I moved on to a couple small tasks, including making a 0 clearance insert. During this project, I was, of course, listening to the radio, and it was a 2 for Tuesday. First song they played, I Remember by Skid Row. Second song they played, 18 in Life by Skid Row. And as you may or may not know, I like many kinds of music, one of my favorite being 80s hair metal. And I have this feeling buried way deep down inside that if I could actually sing, grow hair, and had the appropriate pain threshold for the necessary tattoos, I would have made an awesome 80s hairband frontman. Alright, enough daydreaming, back to work. So I wanted to remove the aluminum faces of this fence and add a plywood face. And I did this for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to make the fence narrower, so that would give me more rip clearance to the left of the blade. By removing the 2 aluminum extrusions and adding this piece of 1/2-inch plywood back on, I was able to gain another inch of rip clearance. And second, I wanted a face that I could adjust up and down and also adjust it so it's perpendicular to the saw table. And here's a quick pro tip. Sandpaper works awesome as a shim. You can use different grits for different thicknesses, you can fold it over, and it stays in place when you tighten everything down. And here I used a few pieces of sandpaper just to take a slight warp out of the fence face. And I don't know if this is total placebo or not, but I think these link belts help reduce vibration. And the final piece of the puzzle, I wanted a nice accurate tape measure for the saw fence. And I found this tape measure made by FastCap, and what wasn't clear in the product description to me was that it comes in 2 parts. One is a metal tape measure and one is double-sided tape. And the tape measure can be glued down either way, so it's left reading or right reading. And I thought I'd give the table a quick wax. I like to use a hard paste wax, and I rub it on and then buff it off with some steel wool. Alright, after all that I was ready to scoot the new bandsaw into its final resting place, and nearest I can tell this saw weighs about 750 pounds, so scooting it was not easy. So I spent a bunch of time fixing up this old bandsaw, and when it came time to make the first cut I was a little nervous. I thought, well, what if this thing doesn't work good? But about halfway through the first cut I realized how nice this saw really is. Silky smooth, very accurate, ton of power. And so I'm real happy. With a 3 TPI 1/2-inch blade, which is my standard go-to all-around blade, I was able to rip off several sheets of veneer that had a pretty nice cut quality. If I pushed a little too fast, the cut quality went down, but a nice slow feed rate gave a really good surface. So when resawing taller boards, I like to add an auxiliary fence, and I will normally switch to a blade with fewer TPI, say a 1/2 inch by 2 TPI blade, or a 3/4 inch by 2 TPI blade works real good for taller boards. But at the time I was filming this, I only had the 1 saw blade in stock. And you can see a few sawtooth marks on this resaw cut, but I was intentionally pushing the board pretty fast, and the cut quality is still pretty good. So just to summarize, at this point, I'm real happy with this bandsaw. And now I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about what I like and dislike about these 2 bandsaws. First things first, I always really liked the mobile base on this Laguna 14-inch saw. I bought this saw when I was working in a two-car garage, and a lot of times I needed to move it around to make cuts, so the mobile base really helped. I also like the cast iron wheels on this bandsaw. The Delta bandsaw has cast aluminum wheels, and if I have to choose between cast iron and cast aluminum, I'm taking cast iron every time. This saw also has a fairly small footprint, and for such a small footprint, it does have a lot of resaw capacity. And again, when I bought this saw, I was working in a two-car garage, and my priorities for size were different than they are now. One thing I don't like about this bandsaw is the fence. Never mind the handle that I broke off, but the aluminum extrusion is a little finicky to adjust. I will say though, once adjusted, it does work fine. On the Delta bandsaw, I really like the circular inserts. It's nice to be able to put a fresh zero clearance insert as needed. And I made a bunch, as you can see. Compare that to the Laguna. This one was never really flat, and it would have been an active aggravation to try and make a zero clearance due to the way that it fits into the opening. I always really liked the guides on the Laguna bandsaw. They were a little finicky to adjust. As you tighten down the knobs, sometimes they shift, but once in place, they just worked awesome. I also really like these bearing guides. What's interesting about these guides is they don't adjust with a cam. They're actually on a cylinder that slides back and forth, and I find this really easy to get dialed in precisely. And properly adjusted guides are the third and final critical element to a properly tuned bandsaw. I like this fence a lot. Even though it was originally designed for a table saw, it's about the right size for this size bandsaw. It's nice and strong and has plenty of adjustability, and being able to bring the face of the fence to 90 degrees to the table really helps when cutting veneers and joinery. One thing I dislike about the Delta saw is the blade tensioning knob. The knob is just way too close to the upper wheel housing, and it makes it difficult to tension the blade properly. My solution was just to run a blade that's 2 inches shorter, and that brings the knob down and does make it easier to adjust. Here's one of the main reasons I wanted to get a new bandsaw. This table's just too low for me to work at comfortably. But then again, when you're 9 feet tall, like I am, most tables will be too low to be comfortable. Compare that to the Delta saw, and the working height, in my opinion, is much more comfortable. Well, there it is, out with the new and in with the old. Overall, it looks pretty good for a bandsaw that's 50 years old and spent most of its time in a high school. I will be sorry to see the Laguna saw go, but I am looking forward to using this larger, more powerful, and super smooth saw in future projects. I appreciate you following along on this journey, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments section below. Until next time, thanks for watching.